Alrighty. Masterclass number 2. Let's go. Let everyone in. Hello to everyone on the replay. Wow, there are so many gorgeous souls coming in here. Okay, let me let you guys all in. When you are in, jump in the chat. If there's anything to know about me, if this is your first group setting with me, if there's anything to know about me on a group setting, it's 1, I love when you guys are really alive in the chat box, and 2, I love it when your videos are on. If you are in a space where you can put your video on, please put it on, because I love, like, I feed off the energy of actually feeling into the vibe. Okay, here we go. See what happens. Ask and you shall receive, right? So jump in the chat. What do I want you guys to bring into the chat? Okay, first, I just want you to say hi. For those who have watched the first masterclass, since then, what's been landing for you? Hi, everyone. Hi. What's been landing for you? What has shifted in the way of, like, the frequency of how you're moving? I just want to hear, like, if there's a word that is just landing for you more than, release a timeline, a statement. I just want to hear, throwing away that timeline. And we're going to go deeper into that today. Trust me when I say today is going to be a wild ride, and I'm going to talk to you guys about that. And I'm really excited to bring this kind of conversation in this setting, right? Enjoying the in-between. I'm obsessed. And it's so funny, right? Because there's this thing that happens in the world of energy, and it's such evidence that everything is energy, because you'll start to see common threads and common themes in collective timelines and people talking about things, and it's all kind of landing, it's all kind of hitting, and you guys are all saying, like, oh my God, this is what I needed, and all the things. And, like, what I want you to hear from that is evidence that it is actually okay to fully lean back and trust that. Like, I know I said this last week, but it's like that knowing that everything that you need in order to move into where you want to go will land. It'll land at the perfect time, but it will not land if you don't create space for it too. And that is really leaning into the feminine energetics. And we're going to talk a lot about the feminine and the masculine and things like that. And we're going to touch into that today. Right. But this is really, like, evidence that it's safe to lean back, that it's safe to let go. And I know that tug of war of, like, but I need to keep doing the next thing. And I need to, I need to know the how, and I need to control the situation. And this is really when we start to recondition our brains that it's not about micromanagement. It's not about controlling your every move. It really is, like, this is the biggest piece in the feminine energetics of things. And I want to be mindful here to know that everyone's at a different level of this work, and someone might not know what I mean by the feminine energetics and the masculine energetics, and we can speak a little bit about that, and we'll go deeper into it next week. But what I mean here is, like, there's this elusive thing, right? That it's like, release the timeline and trust the how, and I get that pull between both, and we're going to go into that so you guys feel more confident in that. But if there's anything to receive from this right now, it's evidence that what you need will land at the right time. What you need to move into the next level, whatever it is that you want for yourself, will land at the right time. So all you can do in the meantime is follow the next right thing and follow the next right step. We're going to get into that today. We're going to talk about all of those things. So first, like I said, drop in anything else that's coming up, anything that you're feeling, anything that you want to share with me, all of the things. I'm going to take a second to just, like, ground the energy, because I always do that. I love that you guys are, like, some of you guys have been with me in so many group containers. Some of you, this is your first time, and you'll know I get really, really excited on these calls. I get really up and about. I get really energetically inspired and can go on tangents. So that I actually deliver what I came here to deliver today, I'm going to ask that you all ground with me for a second so that we can actually receive this, because a big part of today is actually about receivership. So one of the things that I will say to you the most in coming to any kind of group container is like, there is a difference in the brain between like learning, right, and actually just leaning back and receiving. Now, the reason I say this is because I know a lot of you guys have businesses and are coaches. Some of you are, some of you aren't. And a big mistake that I made for a long time is being in my masculine, coming into group containers, and I was straight away in like learning mode, right? How can I apply this? How can I give this to my clients? How can I teach? And all of the things. And what happened is I never actually truly like received what I needed to receive in that moment. Right? Who's done that? Is like straight away you're in already, it's like, oh yes, and I can apply that and all of the things, right? And you're like in teacher mode, right? And you're like, oh yes, this is like, this is learning and that's going to help this client, all of the things, and we all do it, right? But we actually forget that information and recycling information, like, what we're going to talk about today is frequency. We're going to talk about the difference between like information, right, and being embodied in frequency, and how we actually build that frequency. So the number one thing I'm going to ask you to do today is like fully lean back and receive whatever you are supposed to receive today, right? Maybe it's one thing. Maybe it's just a piece of awareness that drops in. But if we don't create that space to receive, what we need to receive doesn't have the space to land. Right. And it's cool that we're talking about this because we're going to go deeper. Triggered before we've even started. Yeah. And again, like I want to bring you into the humanness of that. It's like we care so much about our clients and we care so much about, you know, the work that we do. And I'm again being discerning that I know not everyone in here is in business. So just take whatever you want from this. But we get so into this place of like care and impact that straight away we come into spaces, group containers, and all of the things. And there's no level of like just sitting back and receiving what we need to receive, what we need to apply, like the things that are coming through for us. Straight away, it's how can I give this? How can I pay this forward? Which is a really beautiful attribute, and it does come back to the level that we care. And at the same time, I can guarantee you that coming from a space of not so much information, but receiving whatever, and really apply this to whatever you're doing in your life right now, whether you're doing programs and things like this. If you can come into a place of receiving, right, whatever you're supposed to receive from that training, and letting it come into a place of activation in your body and a frequency in your body, you never have to worry. And this is really cool that we're talking about this again. I didn't plan to say this, but you never have to worry about, well, I'm going to give it to my clients, or I'm going to input this into my teachings or whatever it is, because then you're teaching or you're coaching or you're doing whatever you're doing, but you're doing it from just this automatic state of being embodied in it, right? There's a very big difference of being embodied in something and that naturally just coming through you, rather than staying in your head and recycling information and never actually letting that information process into your body. So that's what I want you to allow today to be. And like I said last week, some of the stuff that we're talking about in this masterclass series is like the most simple stuff in the world. It's simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy to apply. It doesn't mean it's easy to actually lead with this in your life, because it goes against nearly all of our conditioning. It goes against nearly all of what we're taught to do. A lot of the stuff I teach actually goes against majority of the industry. Right? And we're going to talk about this. It goes against some of the manifestation principles. Most of my business coaching goes against all of the business industry. So it may land, you may understand it, but can we have the discernment and can we have the self-trust to actually allow ourselves to lead in a new paradigm, right? In new belief systems of like, I understand this, but what would it look like if I applied it? What would it look like if I led with it? What would it look like if I fully trusted myself, right? Which is what we're going to talk about today. So in that, let's just ground ourselves for a second. So I'm going to ask you guys, if you're in a position to do so, we're going to drop into our bodies, because what we're talking about today is a very feminine energetic place. So we're going to start in the body. So closing your eyes down, if you're in a position to do so. If you're not, it's okay. Closing your eyes down, one hand on your heart, one hand on your womb space, which is just underneath your belly button. And just sighing out any extra breath, any extra tension, any extra buildup of energy, just taking this moment. Just sigh it all out. And I want you to feel the support of whatever you are sitting on right now, whether it's a chair or a bed. And I want you to just feel into your body, just sinking into that a little bit deeper. And feel into your hands and your feet and just letting go of any clenching, any tightness, feeling into your face, your jaw, and just releasing any tightness in your body. Starting to just bring some attention to the breath. And you might just want to use this space to actually check in with your body. Just check in with anything that it wants you to know. Any old stagnant energy that it's time to release. Just use this space to send your awareness to that space in your body and just let it know that you've acknowledged it and therefore it's ready to be released. And I just want you to come into this place of receivership and really drop into the feminine. Bring that sensation of softness into your body, that sensation of presence, that sensation of trust and lean back energy. And just feeling into anywhere else that needs love, that needs acknowledgement. And when you're ready, you can come back into the space. See the difference already? Isn't it crazy, right? How much tension we hold in the body and how much we're leaning in, right? And it's almost like we contract every muscle in our body because it's like we're so in the energy of like, what do I need to do? And what's the next thing? And you know, who needs my attention? And all of the next things and all of the to-dos and all of the constant noise, right? And it's almost like our bodies like create this safety around us because it doesn't feel safe to just lean back, right? And it's cool because we're talking about magnetism today, which is a frequency, right? And it's a frequency that lives within the body. So I'm going to get into today's training. And before I do that, I'm going to remind you of a few things. One, how to show up to this training, just like I said last week. Show up as if you've invested 10K to be here, right? As if every single thing that's coming through today is exactly what needs to land. Yeah. Even if you've heard it a million times before, let it land deeper. Let it awaken something within you. Trust the energy. Trust the energy knows how to activate within you, just like I said last week. Right? I'm excited. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story about, let's get my voice back here. I'm going to tell you a little story about this masterclass in general, okay? Because it's going to lead on into what we are speaking on today. And full reminder here, drop, like if things are coming through, pop it in the chat because I love the back and forth, yeah? So I was getting prepared for this masterclass and how I kind of do things, right? And this is really a beautiful permission slip. What I want today to be is more than anything, I want it to be a permission slip for you, okay? How I kind of do things is, like I spoke about last week, I lead with desire, right? I get a desire to create a masterclass. I get a desire to have a rest. I get a desire to go shopping. My relationship with desire is my strongest magnetism point in my life, right? It's one of the biggest magnetism codes that I've cracked, right? Is following desire. And we're going to talk about that, right? So I get this desire to create a masterclass bundle. And I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about magnetism. We're going to talk about the quantum. We're going to talk about all of these things. And as it came through, I was like, cool. All right. So here's a few little pieces that I'm going to bring in here. And then what I do, right, and I do this with any offering and I do this with any program, is I know the theme, I know the topic, and then, right, I let it come through. Now, this sounds easy. This sounds like a really easy thing to do, that we just let things come through and we trust our voice and we trust our channel and we trust our truth to come through us when it needs to, right? But this is where the tug of war happens between what we're going to talk about today and the conditioning that we're conditioned with, right? So I was sitting down and things have come through for the past couple of weeks, and I've added things here and there. And I was sitting down this morning and just like really sort of breaking it all down and the exact points that I wanted to touch on, just really getting it into a place of like, you know, cleanness. And I was sitting there and I had so much agitation in my body. I was feeling so out of, like, I couldn't focus. Everything was blurry. I was like, this is like my body's starting to feel all the nerves because I'm getting into the stories of like, well, fuck, like I've got to get on in 2 hours and things aren't coming through, right? This is the process. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, okay, it's going to be that, it's going to be this. And I've like looked at this page and it's just this messy thing of notes that I'm going like, I don't even know what I've written. Nothing's feeling good. I'm feeling contraction in my body. And I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? And the whole time, I was ignoring this feeling. I was ignoring this voice that was just going, you don't need them. You don't need them. You don't need them. You don't need them, right? You don't need the notes. You don't need to know. You don't need any of it, right? And I'm sitting here just going like, no fucking way. Haven't spent enough time. Haven't made, like, what am I doing? Who do I think I am that I can just get on a masterclass and just let whatever come through, right? And this is the tug of war. I'm sitting here and I created space. Like in those moments, I'm like, I've got to create space. I've got to move, right? Whereas most of us will just sit and will force, and there is a place that's necessary, and there is a place when we're actually forcing over the top of our own alignment, right? And we're going to talk about alignment, but I'm sitting here and I'm so frustrated and things just aren't happening. And I literally was just like, no, I'm not doing this. Closed my iPad, didn't even think like I'm going to go and, you know, sit in the garden or whatever it was. It was just like, I'm just not going to look at it for a while. And I'm sitting there and I just got the deepest knowing, like once I created the space, I got the deepest knowing that it's just going to come through. It's just going to come through. And then there were points, there were little things that were coming through and I was like, yes, that, but it was like 3 things, right? And then there was those stories of like, but can I do that? Am I going to be able to deliver? Are they going to get anything from it? So the reason why I want to touch on this is because it's going to show you a real life, because it's going to sound kind of too good to be true, what I'm talking about today, but it's going to show you a real life sort of what it can look like when you're in this tug of war between, right, the masculine and the feminine. And we're going to get into more about what that really looks like next week. But what I need you to know, like what I want you to know, because today we're talking about the codes of magnetism. We're not talking about magnetism all like the whole thing. We're talking about the codes. If you don't know what a code is almost like it's a piece of information, right? It's a piece of information that holds a frequency that activates something within you, right? So you don't really need to know how to apply it. It's like once you have that piece of information, it unlocks something within you, right? And it's a frequency thing. That's what a code is. And the cool thing is about this is every single one of you have your own codes. You all have codes that I don't have. You all have codes that someone else doesn't have, but we don't trust in them, right? Because we're looking for the things outside of ourselves. So the code that I want to speak about, right? Because my theory is that magnetism is a frequency. Magnetism is not a frequency that we have to go and attain. It is something that we reclaim within ourselves. Right? As women, we are highly, and men are as well, but as women, we are highly magnetic human beings, right? We are highly, highly magnetic, high frequency, potent human beings. And how we tap into that and the codes that I've used, and I look back, right? Because what I wanted this masterclass series to be was just really a transmission, which means my truth on how magnetism actually works in my life. And it doesn't work in the ways that I thought it needed to, right? The codes that I've uncovered in magnetism, there's some that we know. Detachment, right? We spoke about it last week, detaching. Because when you have the ability to detach, it comes back into the frequency of certainty. It comes back into alignment, right? Which is the next one, which is alignment, but it's alignment at the deepest level. And this is what we're going to talk about, right? Detachment, certainty, and alignment. These are the three things that if you can nail these three things in your life, your magnetism, and when I say magnetism, I want you to know that this is in all forms. I'm not just talking about business. I'm not just talking about in relationships. I'm not just talking about in dating. I'm talking, it's a different paradigm of moving through life, right? And it's when we get into this place of magnetism, because we've tapped into what we're going to tap into today, right? That you start to see that manifestation is really not, it's not this elusive thing. It's very much just a byproduct of us following our truth. It's a byproduct of us being aligned at the deepest level. But most people know what alignment is, but they don't actually know what alignment is. So let's talk about it. So I believe that magnetism comes when you are tapped into alignment, but you are tapped into alignment at the deepest level. And that means in full congruence with your truth. Now, what I mean by this, right, is, and this is why I said this is going to be a permission slip. Sometimes your alignment is going to make absolutely no sense to you. No sense. It's not going to make sense to you. It's not going to make sense to anyone else. And I think alignment gets thrown around in this way of like, oh, well, I'm fully in alignment because, like, you know, I'm doing my morning routine and I'm going to the gym and I'm doing all of these things, right? It's actually kind of the ego. Like, we can have that conversation of like, because the reason this is so powerful is because almost every one of my clients, I've had to have the conversation of, is it really alignment, or is it the thing that people look at you, right, and they go, she's got it all together, right? Or she's doing amazing, right? Alignment is sometimes when the entire world is telling you to go left, you go right. What I mean by that? Alignment is when someone tells you that in order to manifest, you need to visualize, you need to journal, right? You need to whatever else, I don't even know, like do hypnosis, whatever else is coming through. And you're kind of doing it, right? You're kind of doing your morning routine and you're like, this just doesn't feel good. But everyone said I need to do it. So I'm just going to sit here and keep doing it and I'm like sitting here and my thoughts are like going crazy. I'm like, I actually don't feel good. I don't feel good at all. But someone said like, oh, well, their ticket to success was meditation. Well, I better do it. Deeper than this, your alignment is when everyone's doing their macros and their day on a plate and their food and all of the things. And you're following like this food plan, right? And you're eating a salad for lunch and whatever it is, and you're like starting to feel sick after it. And you're like, oh, it just doesn't feel good. I don't feel good. Right. But that's the healthy thing. Yeah, that's following my macros, that's following my trainer's guidance and all the things. And you're like, that actually doesn't feel good. But you keep doing it. Yeah, because someone's told you that that's what you need to do. Right? And alignment is going, I just ate that and I feel really sick and I don't want to eat it anymore. But deeper to that. Okay, I'm going to come back to this because it's going to make more sense. These are what I'm saying right now. This is how I healed my relationship with my body. This is how I healed my relationship with food, with exercise. This is how I built my business. This is how I parent my kids, right? It's when someone tells you that you need to eat a low carb diet or whatever to achieve your goals, and you're like, I'm really craving a sandwich. But then you start gaslighting yourself and you're like, so I can't eat a sandwich. See, I'm just such a shit person. Like I can't even follow a meal plan. Right. And then we get into, what do? Like we get into like this toxic relationship with ourselves where we like go against it and then we start binging on other stuff because we're never just following our body, following the thing that's coming through. Right. You want to know a story about this? I ate the same lunch for 6 years straight. 6 years straight. That's not an exaggeration. 6 years straight. And I look back at that lunch now, and this is such a funny thing that's coming through. I look back at that lunch now, and I know that if I ate that, I'd feel incredibly unwell. And I look back at that 6 years spending hundreds of not hundreds, thousands of dollars on naturopath supplements, nutritionists, right? Why am I so sick? Why am I so sick? Why am I so tired? And everyone's just like, oh, you need more supplements. You need more this, you need more that, right? I only learned last year, the whole time when I was just craving like simple food, like just eating a cheese sandwich instead of a salad with like a million things in it. I learned last year that I couldn't digest any of the food in the salad. But I gaslit myself for 6 years, spent hundreds, thousands of dollars trying to find the answers because I was continuously ignoring my own truth, my own alignment. Because God forbid, if the people in my life who were like into fitness and health found out that I ate a cheese sandwich for lunch, well, fuck, what are they going to think of me then? This is when everyone's telling me, oh, you need to get on TikTok. You need to do reels. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, literally nothing in my body wants to get on TikTok or create reels. Nothing. Nothing. Not one part of me wants to do that. And if I did, what would I be listening to then? Would I be listening to myself? Would I be listening to my truth? Or would I be listening to the noise outside of me? Because it's really funny about that, because I don't use reels. I don't use TikTok. I don't use hashtags. I don't use funnels. I don't use email lists. But somehow I keep growing and expanding. So why? Because I follow energy over noise. And we're going to talk about that. So the feminine energetics teamed with the masculine. This is what I believe equals magnetism. Because here's what we have to understand. If you want to grow rapidly in your life, and you want a quantum leap, and you want to have everything that you desire, right? We've got to understand that that's not going to come. Energy over noise. Yeah, if you can write something down of that. But can we see, this is why I started with that story of like my energy was telling me, it was shutting it down. It was trying to shut it down. But the noise in my head was going, you need to do it this way. You need to do it this way. You need to do it this way. And this is why I started with that story, because it's always going to be, this is always going to be a process, right? The feminine is leading with your body, leading with your contractions and leading with your expansions. We're going to go deeper into that, because that is what alignment actually is. Most people are talking about alignment, but they're talking about alignment from this place of being in their head, right? You ask someone about their alignment and they're like, yeah, I'm most aligned when I'm like doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And it's like alignment you should actually never really know what your alignment is, because your alignment is different in any given moment. And what I mean by that is your body is always leading the way. But if you've already decided what your alignment is, you gaslight yourself the whole way. There was one point where I meditated every single morning and it felt really good. And then there was this period where I was like, I'm not meditating. And I was kind of getting to stories, right? Of like, what, like, why aren't I meditating? Like all of the things, and starting to gaslight myself and all of the things. And then there was this moment recently that I go like, it's interesting because I don't feel any different than when I was. But my head and the noise was like, you're not good enough unless you follow it this way, and whether it looks like this. Because God forbid our success could come in the easiest forms possible. Like, God forbid you could actually have the body that you wanted without being freaking miserable the entire time on the way. Like, why would your success come from being miserable on the way there? Why would that equal success? If we truly believed in the energy of the universe, why would we be miserable on the way to achieving success? But we make ourselves miserable from the noise, from it has to be this way, from getting caught up in coming out of our own lane, in comparing ourselves to someone else and going, well, they're doing it that way, so we have to do it that way. Or they're making that move, so I can't make that move yet because they're ahead of me. Right? And this is what, trust me when I say, if you can come into this place, not only, and if it's still landing, it's still landing, but if you can come into this place where your safest bet is the relationship that you have with yourself and your contractions and your expansions and your desires and your no desires, which we'll talk about. And then you create, which is the masculine piece, self-trust. Self-trust is, we'll talk about self-trust in a minute. But if you can lead with those things in your life, of starting to uncover what's a desire and what's not a desire, and we'll talk about uncovering that in the body. If you can come out of your head and come back into the body, you'll actually see that all of the answers live within the energy of your body. This is the feminine energy of manifestation. But most people are looking out, they're moving through their life from their head, and they're listening to other things from other people's head. Right? Bro marketing. Oh, market to pain points. And I'm talking to you guys in business. Market to pain points. Do email sequences. Do funnels. I've never read, this is the most fully transparent thing that I will ever say. Well, not ever say, but let's be totally honest. I've never, ever read an email. Even the coaches that I work with, I've never read their emails before, ever. So why would then I sit down and write one? If it doesn't feel good, like if it felt good, amazing. But if it doesn't feel good, why would I sit down and write one? If planning out my content doesn't feel good, why would I assume that that's the thing that's going to bring me success? Why would I assume that my success equals being miserable on the way there? Are we starting to see this? Your magnetism comes from following your deepest alignment. And sometimes that is the most unlogical, uncomfortable thing that you could possibly do. It takes radical honesty within yourself. It takes having uncomfortable conversations. It takes making moves where you know that someone is not going to understand you if you do it, but it's truth to you. And the reason why this creates magnetism is because you're building a frequency that is rooted in certainty. And when we lean on self-trust, which is the masculine element of following your contractions and your expansions, because it takes a hell of a lot of self-trust to do this. But when I was sitting, right, in fact, this is the first thing that came through on this masterclass bundle. The first thing that I knew that I had to speak into was self-trust, right? And the reason being is I was asking myself, like, what is it about me that people say to me, they're like, you're really magnetic. There's something about you that I just feel pulled towards. And I was like, well, what the fuck is that? I'm just me. Like, what is so special? I don't get it. Right. And it's not that I'm special. It's that I looked back and I went, there's the thing. There's the thing that I've done since day one. And it is lead with self-trust. And because I've done that, it's built a frequency that people trust me because I'm a safe anchor, because I trust myself. This is in relationships. This is in everywhere. Because I've detached from the attachment of the outside world, and I've led from the body. I've led from expansion, which means I'm not looking at anyone else to come and tell me the ways, because I fully trust myself to move me there. Now, there was a time where I think I spoke about this on the first masterclass, that it was, I called it a recovering manic manifester. And it's really funny because the word manic is so, like, I was thinking about it yesterday. I would get so spun out when I was trying to manifest something. It would be like every day I'd be pulling tarot cards and like looking for signs. I could never settle. I could never settle within my body, within my life, because I was so terrified of something happening or something not happening, because I didn't trust myself. And I didn't actually trust the universe. And do you know what's really funny about trusting the universe? Someone asked me that recently. They're like, how have you developed such a strong ability? Call me out so much. How have you developed such a strong ability to trust the universe? And the answer is because I first learned to trust myself. Because trusting the universe is actually nothing without first trusting yourself. Can you imagine how much energy we waste when we follow the noise? Think about if I was going to listen to the noise, and I did, and I have. 6 years eating a salad that made me sick every single day. Then I went and had to go to appointments all the time and had to spend all of this money on supplements when I just wasn't actually going, I feel sick. My body is telling me no. I've been into multiple programs, and we've all been in an unaligned program at one point in our lives. And just the whole time I'm sitting there going, no. But I'm like, oh, I got to show up. I paid for it, so I better show up. The whole time I'm like, nah, this is not it. And it's like, because it's so funny, because this can look like, this sounds really empowering, but it's going to push on your shadows. It's going to push on the parts of you that are deeply conditioned to look a certain way. Right? I was doing the work for Embodied the other day, and I was doing a transmission on the feminine, and I realized the reason why so many people have a hard time getting into their feminine is because the feminine is deeply rooted in a lot of our shadows, and we've actually shamed our feminine a lot. Right? And so a lot of this, like when all of your friends are going to the gym and they're like doing training and all of that stuff, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go because they're all going. And like, I think that's when like my body's just going to look good. It's like those people, they've been going to the gym for 3 years and they still think that they're going to get to that point of their bodies looking the way they want to look, even though they've followed the exact thing for 3 years. And it's like, I'm speaking from experience, yeah. And it's like, there's this part of them that's like, I actually don't like this environment at all. My body doesn't feel good here. I'm sore every day. I'm getting injured, but they keep going because they should be going. Right? Versus the person that goes, this isn't feeling good. My body doesn't feel good. I'm sore every day. Like, can we see that again? We're miserable on the way to success. And then it was like, oh, I feel really called to do Pilates. This is my experience. I started doing Pilates and I was like, this is really enjoyable. It takes 20 minutes out of my day. I wake up, I do my Pilates on my mat, and I keep going. Whereas the gym took 2 hours out of my day. I was miserable the whole time I was there. But I kept going for 3-4 years because I didn't trust my body to lead me into the right place. And this is what I'm talking about alignment. I'm not talking you're in alignment because you're drinking green juice every day and because you're doing your visualizations and because you're manifesting and doing affirmations. Like, for me, I've never, ever read affirmations in my life. But there was like, I just, the first time I did it, I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, this is just a bunch of words. This isn't landing, right? And it's okay if it does. But if you're like, that's actually not my thing, can we just have discernment and go, that's actually not my thing? Like, are we seeing how much we gaslight ourselves and how much energy we spend continuously doing all of this stuff, right? I reckon we're spending about 70% of our energy doing things that aren't in alignment for us, and spending a lot of our day doing things that actually like are not necessary, but we're doing it because we follow the noise, right? So I want to talk about contractions and expansions because I've mentioned that. And this is a really beautiful way to tap into desire and non-desire. So like I've said, the way I do manifestation is I follow my desire, right? Sometimes it's difficult to figure out what that is, right? Because sometimes you'll be like, I think it's a desire, I don't really know. But how we do this is like stepping into your full feminine power means leading with your body. And what I mean by that is we've got to come out of our head and start connecting back into our body to actually know what is in alignment and what's not. Because how you will know is your body actually lets you know through either a contraction or an expansion. Right? And we're going to talk about this. I'm actually going to get you to drop into what this might look like for you. But every single thing that you do, and again, we've got to remember, like, this is going to take slowing down a lot. It's going to take actually having that discernment and creating space to go like, have I ever actually questioned whether this thing is for me or not? Or am I just doing it because someone else is doing it? Or because someone should? I remember there was a time, and it's cool that we're talking because I know you guys are in all different, you know, some of you in business, some of you are not. And that's why I'm trying to bring in all of the different things, because truly, I don't just do this in business, I do it in everything. Like this, like I said, this is how I healed the relationship with my body, because I kept thinking that everyone else had the answers for me, right? And every time we think that someone else has the answer for us and we follow someone else's alignment rather than our own, we poke holes in our own self-trust. And they're only little pinholes, right? But imagine an inflatable boat, like enough pinholes, it's going to deflate. Whereas when you use self-trust to follow the desire or the non-desire or the contraction or the expansion, you get to a place of collapsing time, right? And if you don't know what I mean by collapsing time is like, we're in a timeline right now, you're in a reality right now. And when we're talking about the quantum field and we're talking about the universe, we're talking about the fact that infinite timelines exist at any given moment. Right now, in this moment, there are infinite timelines that exist for you. Meaning the future you that you can imagine, all the things that you already exists in this moment. Now, how you go from this timeline into that timeline and how you do that rapidly is going to be following desire, non-desire, and leading with self-trust. So what I'm going to get you to do now is I'm going to actually get you guys to do a bit of an alignment exercise within yourself. It's only going to be like a 10-second thing or however long it takes to actually tune into somatically. Somatically means in the body. Actually tune into energy within your body. And what I want you to bring into this exercise is just bring in a couple of things, like let your higher self bring up what to bring into this experience, like whether it's a couple of things that you've been stuck around, or you just don't know what to do, or you just feel like there's these things that you're like, I don't know which way to go, or I just feel weird about it, or I just don't know, like I don't have the results that I want in that area, or whatever it is, you'll intuitively know what to bring into this. Feel into a few things that have been happening in your life right now that you just want to access your alignment with, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to somatically experience what it feels like to access energy in our body. So to do this, I want you to close your eyes and just breathing out anything that needs to come out in order for you to fully release and relax. And I want you to bring these things to mind, whatever those things are. And bring your mind's eye and your awareness down to your heart space. And when you think about these particular things, can you feel your energy? Can you feel it expand and get bigger? Almost like you're opening your heart space a little bit more? Or is there a contraction where you're almost wanting to close off and your body wants to get smaller and more tense? Can you feel tension and contraction? Or can you feel lightness and expansion? And now bring in those things that you've kind of been avoiding looking at. And it's kind of like, you know, there's something there, but you kind of don't want to look at it. It's like if you're really honest with yourself, you kind of know there's something there. And feel if there's a contraction or an expansion. And now I just want you to reel off the things that you've been doing in like a daily, day-to-day lifestyle. Or maybe it's in your business, maybe it's in your relationship, maybe it's with your health. And start to identify what feels light energetically, what feels light, and what actually feels really heavy. Where can you feel heaviness in the things that you've been doing? And where can you feel lightness? And in this, can you tune into where has your body been speaking to you and your higher self been speaking to you? What's it been trying to say? And just trust that you got everything you need to get from that. And when you're ready, you can come back into the space. If you feel cold, was anything surprising about that? Or did you get confirmation of anything in that? And fully trust yourself. If you weren't able to fully access that, that's okay. All you need to know is the difference between contraction and expansion. Expansion is openness, it's lightness. Contraction is tension. It's smallness, it's wanting to hide. I'm going to give you guys a second to write whatever you're writing. I've been asking everyone if I should do Pilates instead of asking myself. I know the answer now. And these are such small things, right? And we think, well, like this is just like a little thing. But what we're accessing here is we're accessing self-leadership. And your codes of magnetism reside in self-leadership. Most people are manifesting from a place of noise, from a place of hoping, from a place of wishing, from a place of like, I don't know if it's going to happen. Whereas the people that are like doing this big, expansive stuff, they're coming from a place of self-leadership, from trusting their own voice, from trusting their own truth, from making decisions that are not going to make sense to anyone else. And again, sometimes this is not easy, right? But every time you follow this, you're building a frequency. And that frequency is when things come into your life and they just don't even make sense. But what you've done is you've expanded your capacity to hold. You've expanded your capacity to receive. From building these micro moments of self-trust, these micro moments of following your alignment, they are building a frequency of magnetism. They are building a frequency where things come into your life because you've built safety to be able to receive them, to be able to hold them. Can we see the difference between like, you're trying to make something happen. You're trying to make something happen versus knowing it's happening, leaning back, and following alignment. Can we see the difference in those two energies? Most people do manifestation from a place of trying to make something happen. And a lot of the time they're miserable along the way. And we need to hear that. Why would you be miserable along the way if you're in your deepest alignment? There's a very big difference in frequency of trying to make something happen versus certainty in it happening, leaning back, and just following alignment along the way. Let me read this. I knew exactly what to bring in, and it's something that has been a force and was definitely a contracted feeling versus expansion. Something I thought I should do, but really doesn't feel right. And that's where you have to lead with self-trust. Because a lot of the time, your alignment will go against a lot of what you think you need to do, you think you need to be, right? I'm going to speak about some of the times that I've followed self-trust and the cool, crazy things that can happen from that. Because this is how much I followed. This is how deep the relationship I've built with self-trust actually is. And some of you guys know this if you're in the container with me. I think there's some of you guys are on here. I have actually run 2 separate containers. One was 3 months long and one was 4 months long, right? Purely on self-trust. And what I mean by that is I did not know, right? Both of these different containers had about 14 to 16 weeks of trainings in them. And before I started, I did not know what one of those trainings would be. Each week, I didn't know what one of those trainings would be. Because it was a surrender experiment into the deepest forms of self-trust. Trusting my voice, trusting my channel, trusting my higher self, and trusting those to receive it. And that's permission, because most of us are still trying to create from outside of ourselves. We're trying to figure it all out. And from figuring it all out, we actually never start. We actually never do the thing. We think, I'm not ready. I can't do that yet. And the only thing that has ever gotten me from one timeline in my life to the next, like the one thing I put that down to, is self-trust. Yeah, this is exactly what I need to hear right now. Right? So we spoke about last week in that when you're manifesting from an embodied state, we're leading with desire. And we're releasing the timeline, but we're also releasing the readiness. So what happens when you release the readiness? The only thing that you can do is follow self-trust. Because if you don't feel ready, how can you show up in confidence? Well, what confidence actually is, at the root of it, is self-trust. Have you ever seen those people that just walk into a room and you just take notice of them? And you just know they're just not listening to people's bullshit. They're not listening to the noise. They're not worried about like what they look like, or if someone's like, you know, it's like people go into a party and you can tell those people that are just like fully, you'd call them confident, but what they are actually is they're in the frequency of self-leadership, of trusting their truth more than anyone else's. Like it's that person that like, they just have such a cool style. Like, where did that style come from? Like, I've never seen that before. Right? And it's trusting their self-expression, trusting their authenticity. Like, there's a very big difference between being authentic and like letting people see like 10% of your weird, wacky side, and being authentic and being deeply in alignment, like in a business sense where it's like, you know what, my prices are actually this, or that program's actually going to change to this, or I'm actually not going to do group programs when I thought I needed to, right? Or when you're in a relationship and you're like, this actually isn't the relationship for me, holy fuck. I've had clients be there. I'm going to get to that question in a minute. It's deeply, deeply scary self-leading in your life, because you have to have yourself so deeply. But this is also where magnetism comes, right? One of the best things I ever heard on relationships, I say this quite often, it was just you guys might have heard it as well, was just some random video that came up on Instagram one day, and it was this guy being interviewed about trust in dating, right? Or trust after you've been through heartbreak. And he said, trust isn't, I can get into this relationship because I trust this person not to hurt me. Trust is, I can get into this relationship because I trust that I have myself regardless, if I'm hurt or if I'm not. And this is the same as making moves in your business or in your health. It's trusting that even if it doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to work out, I have myself regardless. That's what self-trust is. I feel like I have self-trust, but how do you apply it to fully surrender with things you can't control? Well, the thing is about self-trust is you don't do anything. You just trust in the surrender. That's what surrender is. You don't do anything. If you can't control it, what do? There is nothing to do but lean back and trust. It's one of the hardest things, right? It's one of the hardest things in this world, is to be in complete self-leadership and block out the noise and block out how everyone is doing things and what the next thing is. But what's so cool about this, and never in my life has there been a time where I've seen things rapidly expand so quickly. And, you know, I was starting to trigger people recently. This is just some full transparency. I was starting to trigger people in my life and in this industry and all of the things, because people were like, you can't just do that. Like, you can't just do what you're doing. And I was like, why? And they were like, because it needs to be done this way and it needs to all of the things. And what I'm seeing is there are certain people that create results that don't make sense. And where I see that coming from is from doing things that just don't make sense, but they're what feel right to you. It's your truth. And you have to know that you can have the self-trust to hold yourself in your truth, whatever that looks like, regardless of people's opinions, regardless of whether things work out in that or not? Can you hold your truth no matter what? For example, I'm going to bring this into a business scenario, and it's just going to be a powerful way to explain this. Let's say that you get a desire to put out an offer or to create a program or to do something in your business, whatever it is. And it feels like truth. It feels so aligned. It feels so expansive. And you put it out and no one signs up or no one replies to it. It's been like 2 or 3 days and you're sitting here and you're like, I just want to take it down. I really want to take it down. I just want to say, no, I'm not doing it. Sorry, false alarm. Whoops, just accidentally posted something, put out a draft, actually not doing it. But can you hold your truth even when nothing makes sense to keep doing so? Can you hold your truth in saying no to the potential partner that you're dating and he's like got 10 things that are like, you're like, oh, these are really good, but there's actually like 4 red flags, but then there's these 10 things that are really good? Can you trust that there's actually someone that has all the 10 things without the 4 red flags? But you have to follow your truth first in that and say, you know what? We had a great connection, but it's just not there. Can we see the difference in magnetism? Can we see the difference in attachment? Can we see the difference in this? Where your self-leadership, your truth is the most important voice, right? Because we do the opposite. We go, I'm just gonna stay with this partner because like he's kind of good and like I don't really know, like it took me like 4 months to meet him and like there's gonna be no one else, so I'll just like try and make it work. Or we're just like, I'm just gonna price this offer because like I think that's what people will pay. I think that's kind of like the right thing, and I think like no one's gonna have more money than that. Let's just price it at that. Right? Instead of actually tuning into like what feels good for me, what's right, what's an aligned price for me for an offer. Can you see what we consistently do? We come out of our truth, we come out of ourself, and we let life determine for us. We let other people's limiting beliefs determine things for us. Instead of following the right thing in our body. Is this landing? Let me know. And can we see how different this is to the manifestation process that we're taught? It's like, believe it, receive it. I don't even know what it is, to be honest, because it never worked for me. I was like, what is this? I think I believe it. I don't know. Do I believe it enough? Am I believing enough? Do I believe it enough? I don't know. Do I get to have it now? I think I believe it. Like, versus decision, certainty, it's happening. So can I lean back and follow desire? Can I lean back and follow my alignment? Can I lean back and know that when someone's on paper perfect, but in my body, this person feels like a red flag, and I trust my body over paper, right? Or if someone's like, oh, you should really put out this type of program, or you should really do this as a career. And everyone's like, you should do this. You're so good at this. And you're like, I don't want to fucking do it. I don't want to do that. But everyone's like, you should do this. You should do that. You should do this. And you're like, I don't want to do it. But they said I have to. I don't want to make reels. I don't want to make TikToks. I don't want to plan my content. I don't want to be a personal trainer anymore. But everything makes sense for you to do it, right? I don't want to do this uni degree anymore. But I paid for it. But my parents will think I'm a disappointment. I don't want to read this book anymore. I don't like it. But I'm just a failure because I never finish a book. Meditation doesn't really work for me. Doesn't feel good. Yeah, but that person on that podcast said that they had to do it. That we had to do it. Like, can we see the difference? Can we see how much energy we're wasting on trying to follow the noise rather than self-lead? Magnetism comes from self-leadership because it's anchored and it's rooted in the frequency of self-worth, of certainty, of I can trust my voice, I can trust my own alignment, right? How would you discern between resistance and misalignment? This is a really, really, really good question, right? Because it depends if the thing that you want on the other side of the resistance is still an expansion. Because resistance comes in two forms. Sometimes resistance, right, is to show us that this thing actually isn't aligned, right? If for example, like if you do something in your business and it's kind of not working, right? But then deep down, you kind of don't want it to work because you're like, I don't really want to do it in the first place. That it not working is just further confirming you not wanting it to do in the first place. Whereas if it's resistance, but on the other side, you actually really want to do that thing, the resistance is telling you that you need to work, you need to go deeper in creating safety for your body to move through it. Like, this is the biggest thing about resistance is like even, you know, procrastination and avoidance and things like that. We have to have discernment. And I'm glad you asked this question because it, you know, it was one of the things that I wanted to get to. But we have to have discernment between where we need intuition, and I love that we're doing what we're doing next week, but where we need intuition and where we need discipline. This is the feminine and the masculine. Intuition, discipline. And what I mean by that, like if you're procrastinating on something that you want to do for your business, but on the other side of it, you really want to do that thing, that procrastination is showing you that you actually need to go and do some unconscious work and create safety in your body to be able to do that thing. But what we do is we gaslight ourselves. I'm such a procrastinator. I'm so lazy. It's like, no, literally you're in self-preservation mode because your body doesn't feel safe to go and do that thing. Right? Like if that's the first time you've heard that, the procrastination is just a form of self-preservation because your body doesn't actually feel safe doing the thing on the other side because it doesn't have certainty in what you're doing. And we've got to have discernment. Again, like if you're procrastinating cleaning the house, like that's probably just because you're avoiding the thing that you don't want to do. But procrastination on that project for your business or moving up in your career, like that's a different form of procrastination. That's actually self-preservation, and that resistance needs to be looked at. Because if on the other side of the resistance there's still an expansion, like if you think of what's on the other side of the resistance and you're still expanded by it, it's still in alignment, but there's some work to do, right? How we move from one level to the next level is we see resistance as a portal, right? We see resistance as something to lean into rather than lean out, which most people would lean out. If we lean into it and we go, okay, why don't I feel safe doing this thing? Right? Like this is the mindset and the energetic work is like creating safety in the body to do the next thing. Whereas most people are just gaslighting themselves and going, oh, I'm so lazy, I'm such a procrastinator. It's like, no, your body is literally telling you that it doesn't feel safe going ahead with this. Right? Whereas misalignment is like on the other side of this resistance, I actually don't feel that good about doing this thing. Like I'm kind of just doing it because I thought I had to or I should. That's actually kind of the resistance is like divine intervention of like just showing you, giving you confirmation that you don't actually have to do it. And often when we ignore that, we do the thing. And of course, it just doesn't work. Funny that. Does that land? Beautiful. So if anyone has any questions about what we've just touched on, please drop them in. And what I want to leave you with more than anything is a invitation to make your deepest commitment the commitment of building self-trust. Something that's really interesting that happened to me recently, I was doing a breathwork session. And I don't know if you guys have ever done like a hectic breathwork session where you pretty much go into like intergalactic space travel for a second. Well, that's definitely where I went when we were doing this. And I don't know where I was, but I wasn't on Earth, that's for sure. And I had like a full experience, and I was having a full dialogue and conversation with don't know who, but they weren't from this realm. Let's put it that way. And I got this, like, it was the clearest thing I've ever heard. Clearest thing, right? It wasn't like a feeling. It was like these words were the clearest thing, and they landed, and I literally bawled my eyes out after hearing this. And it was like, the answer is always self-trust, and it will always be self-trust. No matter what it is, the answer is always self-trust. And the tears came because it was just like further confirmation, further permission that this is what we follow. We follow self-trust, right? We follow the trust in our alignment. We follow the trust when our friends ask us to go out on a Saturday night and we're like, I really don't want to go. I'm not feeling it. And again, discerning what's coming from where. So if you're feeling in the body, like the difference between intuition and fear, and this is just a really cool thing to like have the language around. A lot of you know what it is, but like languaging it can really be a helpful thing. The difference between fear and intuition is one, it's in the body, right? It's like a deep knowing, whereas fear always has the tonality and always has the frequency of not enoughness, right? Like if you peeled it all back, it comes back to not enoughness or comparison or whatever that looks like. It's always not enoughness, right? But intuition is like a deep knowing. It's just like, no matter what, this feeling like I don't want to do this thing is always there, and it's quiet and it's subtle, right? Whereas fear is more like loud, noisy. It's in your head. It's like almost like a little mosquito that's like so noisy, and you're just like, oh my God, leave me alone. Whereas intuition is just like this subtle knowing that's like, no, that's not it. But most of us are not giving that little subtle knowing enough credit. And like we say that we follow our intuition things, but do we? Like, do we when we're actually like, I'm not actually enjoying going to the gym anymore. I'm not actually enjoying my job anymore. I'm not actually enjoying this course anymore. And if you ask yourself, well, why am I still doing it? If the answer is I'm still doing it because I think I just need to stick it out and I think there is something in here that I'm going to get, that's one thing. But if you ask yourself and like, I'm still doing it because that person said I should, or I'll be a disappointment to my parents if I don't, or that friend won't like me anymore, that's the difference. I love that I didn't plan any of that. Self-trust at the deepest level. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'm just double checking my notes, my like 3 things that I wrote down that I really didn't touch on any of them. Because again, self-trust and the amount of energy we waste, right, doing it the opposite way and trying to do it this way. You know, there was one time before I took off in my business, I was developing a program, and I developed that program for 9 months. 9 months. And I realized I wrote an entire book. Like I wrote an entire book in that program. And it's really funny because I don't like writing. Like, I don't like writing. I like speaking, right? And someone said to me once, you know, you don't need to do that for a program. You can just get on and speak. And I was like, no, you can't do that. Lo and behold, I started doing it and look what happened. So again, this is really going to the like, what I would take from this is like, go and do the homework. Like, where are you actually just not leaning into self-trust that what you already have within you is enough? Like, that's where confidence comes from. It's not something you go and get. It's not something you develop. It's something that like you lead with because you're trusting yourself, right? Confidence is a frequency, and that frequency is rooted in self-trust. I loved this. And I loved all of the looks on your faces. You're like, interesting, right? And this is cool because we're having to unplug from a lot of conditioning. And, you know, the thing is about all of this stuff is it's like, it frees up about 90% of our energy, and that's scary. That's scary because we're so used to doing things to prove our worth, rather than just like being and following the next right thing. But this is the permission to do that. So from here, my loves, I would love. I'm going to post a key takeaway in the Facebook group. Come in and tell me what you got, because I love reading the different things that landed for you guys. And if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them under the key takeaways. If something's just like not fully landed yet and you're like, wait, I need to like go into that a little bit, feel free to bring it in. We are going to meet next week, Friday, 12:30, same time. We're going to dive deep into the masculine and the feminine 101, but it's going to be a conversation. It's funny, again, it's that full self-trust piece as well. I was trying to develop like this really cool training where it was like all of this like teaching, and I'm like, I don't want slides. I don't want to make a PowerPoint. I don't want to be in teacher mode. I just want to trust the transmission in how I teach this stuff, which again, more self-trust. I love this. And also a reminder, guys, if you have been thinking about getting into embodied, you might have seen the Facebook posts that you get to use your whole tuition off of that. And that's just coming into a place of like that group program it's kind of everything. It's kind of everything. It's all my mindset and energetic stuff. And I was going through it and I was like, fuck, this needs to be out there. So if you want to get in, reach out. I'll give you a coupon code. But in the time being, it's time to let go and follow your alignment. Amazing, guys. All right, my loves. I will see you next week. Can't wait to hear your key takeaways.